Now, it's easy to think that you need a ton of money to get started in real estate. I mean, after all, for much of human history, you basically had to be nobility or super rich to afford land. And these days, housing prices are at historical highs in a lot of markets. But real estate is an excellent way to diversify your portfolio and even to hedge against inflation. And the great news is you can still invest in real estate even if you don't have that much capital. That's why in this video, I'm covering 5 legit ways you can invest in real estate without much money. And some of the ideas in this video cost $10 or even less. So there's opportunities out there for everyone. Let's get to it. All right, and so number 1 on this list of ways you can invest in real estate without being ultra rich or having a lot of money is to invest in REITs, or real estate investment trusts. So a REIT is basically a company that generally owns and operates income generating real estate. So this might include something like apartments, shopping malls, office buildings, hotels, resorts, any kind of real estate that is going to generate cash flow. And so this is one of the main reasons investors really like REITs. They're going to generally provide some pretty stable fixed income. And REITs are actually legally required to pay out at least 90% of income as dividends to shareholders. So you can buy a REIT and then pretty much reliably guarantee that you're going to be receiving some dividends from it. And one reason we really like REITs at Investor Junkie is they're very easy to purchase. You can just go into your online stockbroker and you can find a lot of publicly traded REITs. You can find ETFs or mutual funds that have REITs and start investing in them. And many REITs cost under $100 or even around $10 per share. So you can find a lot of cheap REITs out there to add to your portfolio and kind of diversify that way. Now, one of the main downside of REITs is that the income is generally taxed as ordinary income. So there might be some tax implications there, but if you're looking for a very simple, straightforward way to diversify through real estate and you don't have much money, you can consider REITs. All right, and number 2 on the list of ways you can invest in real estate without much money is to invest through real estate crowdfunding sites. So this is a pretty similar concept to REITs, and it basically involves getting a bunch of investors together, they pool their money together, and they purchase income generating real estate. Now, generally these crowdfunding platforms focus on commercial real estate, so again, like office buildings and things like that, but some of them buy multifamily homes. There's also been a rise in crowdfunding platforms that buy individual family homes, so it's actually quite a diverse space. And one of the main advantages to real estate crowdfunding is that the barrier to entry is incredibly low right now. For example, companies like Fundrise let you purchase shares of income generating real estate with just $10. From there, you get paid quarterly dividends from the income that real estate produces, and you can hold on to your shares or sell them down the line. Now, crowdfunding platforms typically charge an annual fee, and in Fundrise's case, it's 1% per year, which is pretty low in the crowdfunding world, and historically it's returned about 8 to 9% per year. Now, some crowdfunding platforms do require much higher minimum investments or even to be an accredited investor, so they're not all quite as beginner friendly as Fundrise, but ones like Arrived Homes are new and they're very beginner friendly. They have $100 minimum. You don't have to be accredited, so there's quite a few companies out there. You can get started without much money and you don't need to be accredited. And now, one of the main downsides of crowdfunding companies is that liquidity can be an issue. So sometimes you have to hold on to your shares for a certain amount of years. Sometimes there's no secondary marketplace where you can offload them. So it's important to read the terms and services of any crowdfunding platform you use so you make sure you know how long you're locking up your money for potentially. That said, like REITs, it's an incredibly beginner friendly way to add real estate to your portfolio. And some of the newer players are really cool because you can kind of pick and choose individual properties you want to invest in. And our editor-in-chief, Clint, actually tried out Arrived Homes recently. He bought shares in 5 different properties and they're getting tenants now and they're going to start generating dividends. So it's actually a pretty cool way to kind of spice up your portfolio. Anyways, I'm going to be linking an article down below from investorjunkie.com on the best real estate crowdfunding companies if you want to give that a read for some more information. All right, number 3 on this list of ways to invest in real estate without having a ton of money is duplex house hacking. And so if you have enough money saved up for a down payment, but you kind of want to find a strategy that really reduces your monthly mortgage payments or takes some of that stress off of your back, you could consider house hacking. And so this is a strategy where basically an individual or perhaps a couple will purchase a duplex and then rent out half of the home to a tenant to start generating rental income. At some point in time, these homeowners might sell the duplex entirely, or they might, move into their own home. They might just then turn the duplex into a rental property with 2 tenants. So there's, kind of a longer term play there as well. And so the main advantage of this is that you have rental income coming in, and so that can help you cover the mortgage for the house. But there's also some nifty tax benefits as well because you're a landlord. So for example, you might be able to deduct certain expenses like maintenance or repairs or even utilities. And one might argue that it's also easier being a landlord when you live right next door to the tenant because you're not driving across town or to different cities to manage rental properties. You live right next to the person who's renting from you. Now, the main downside of the house hacking thing, aside from the fact you need enough money for a down payment, is that you're going to be living with someone. You have to deal with the noise, their habits, and they also know where to find you at all hours of the day. So there's no hiding. If there's something broken or there's an emergency, it's your job to fix it. That said, if you are looking to purchase with, by yourself or with a partner, and you kind of are worried about how much mortgage you can actually afford, house hacking could be something to consider. All right, and number 4 on this list of ways to invest in real estate without much money is to go into a real estate limited partnership, or an RELP. So this is very similar to crowdfunding, and it's essentially when a group of investors get together and they're going to buy, develop, or lease some kind of real estate building as a group. The main difference is you're typically dealing with a much smaller pool of investors, and it's probably people you know. You're not really just going to a crowdfunding platform and just, investing in some random real estate property with a bunch of people from across the country. Now, RELPs usually have a general partner, and they're the ones who assume full liability, and then one or more limited partners who are going to be liable only up to the amount they contribute into purchasing the property. And these limited partners are usually more hands-off passive investors as well. They're just giving capital to kind of buy this piece of real estate, and it's the general partner who might take on more of a management role, finding tenants, dealing with the property, maybe dealing with developers if there's some improvements that are going to be going on. And now the thing with RELPs is they can all function very differently. Everyone's going to sign a partnership agreement that assigns roles and decides how income is going to be split and what everyone's responsibilities is. So it's kind of not a one-size-fits-all kind of contract. The agreement also spells out things like partner voting rights, or the fees everyone is going to pay. So again, it's kind of a different contract per scenario, and it's a group of investors figuring out what's best for everyone. There can also be some pretty cool tax benefits. So for example, an RELP doesn't actually have to pay taxes. The income or losses are passed through to each individual investor. This can potentially help you write off some expenses, and there can be some actual tax advantages if you play your cards right. Now, we don't think this is necessarily the best real estate investment strategy for beginners or if you're just starting out, because again, they can be more niche and complicated and there's a whole contract to deal with. But if you're interested in buying real estate with a very small group of investors, an RELP could be the right solution. All right, and the fifth and final way you could invest in real estate without having much money is to become an Airbnb host. And this is a bit more an out-of-the-box idea, and it won't fit for everyone and everyone's space and schedule and lifestyle, but you can make a lot of money as an Airbnb host if you get creative. So the most straightforward and obvious route here is that if you already own a home, you can rent out a spare room or two on Airbnb, hopefully get some regular renters every single month, and all of a sudden you're generating some extra income. However, I've stayed in some really weird Airbnbs over the years, and I've met hosts who are making a lot of money with some pretty creative solutions. So for example, I stayed at one Airbnb in Florida, and basically the host just built a really small guest house in their backyard. They were by the beach, it was a really good rental area. It was a one bedroom, had a really, really small kitchen, tiny bed, enough for one or two people maybe. And they were just renting it out, and it was booked solid pretty much all throughout summer and winter, so they were definitely making a lot of money. I've also stayed in tiny homes and tiny cottages up north, and I was paying like $200 a night to stay in this tiny little cabin up north. So there's a lot of opportunities on Airbnb or VRBO where if you have some land or you have a big backyard or you have spare rooms in your house, you might be able to get creative, build a little rental and then start an Airbnb business. Anyways, guys, that does it for our list of the 5 best ways you could start investing in real estate without much money. There's honestly a lot more strategies out there, and I'm also going to link an article down below that covers this exact topic and goes a bit more in depth into each of the ideas we covered. Again, housing prices are pretty high right now. It's definitely a difficult time to get into real estate for a lot of people, but you can still diversify your portfolio if you know how to do it, and you don't need a lot of money to get started. If there's an idea I missed or there's some strategy you're using, we'd love to know down below as well. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Tom Blake with InvestorJunkie.com, and we'll see you guys in the next one.